In today's video, we're going to talk about JavaScript data types and the various ways you can use some of them. Data types are an important concept to understand in order to be able to operate on variables. If you're wondering how to declare variables in JavaScript and the different types that they are, a video should pop up in the top right corner, or there should be a link in the description below. To start us off, JavaScript has about 8 data types, but today I'm only going to be discussing 6 as you can see over here. The last 2 data types can get a bit more complex and they'll be better be discussed in their own video in more detail. So in our JavaScript file today, I prepared some variables that have not been assigned a value yet. You can name them anything you would like to or keep them the same as I have so you can follow along. The first data type we'll discuss is known as a string. A string is simply a series of characters that are put together in between quotation marks. You can use either single or double quotation marks. We can go to our name variable over here and use the assignment operator. Following that, I'll use double quotation marks and use a name like peak. Just remember to include a semicolon after each statement in JavaScript. What we have right now is known as a string. So I can copy this over to our second variable. I'm just going to copy that and then I'm going to paste it right here. And then I'm going to change this D to B and I'll change the double to single quotes. Both of these variables are known as strings and they should have the same results. From here, if we want to see the result of our variables, we can write console.log and then in these brackets, we write the variable name that we want to see. So now if I save this, you'll see that the result in our console is Deek. And if I go right here and put the 2 for our second variable and save that, we should get Beak instead. A reason you can have to use single or double quotes is so you can include maybe a sentence that has an apostrophe in it. So the main thing you can take away from the first data type is that anything between quotation marks is considered a string. That's something important that we will get to in a bit. The second data type is known as a number. So we don't use any quotation marks here. As long as we just write a number, a variable should have that number. What we can simply do is just assign this x value the value of 3. Then in our console.log over here in the brackets, we can use the x variable, and if we save this, our console should print out 3. With numbers over here, you can even use negative values, or you can use decimals as well, so 0.3 should work as well. These are all numbers. I would like to point out that if you're coming from another programming language that uses numbers, you will notice that JavaScript does things a bit different. In a language like C#, this 3 right now would be considered as an integer, and if we included a decimal point like 3.0, then we would call this a float or a double. But in JavaScript, they all fall under the number data type. So one less thing to worry about, but a difference that is nice to know. In our x variable here, I'll do a simple addition. I'll add 3 with 2, so 3 plus 2. And if I save this, we should have the result of 5 on our console. The reason I do this is so I can show you the difference of what happens when we add a string and a number instead. So the first thing I'll do is assign our y value a value of 5. And then for our z value, I'll just copy Deek over here. So I'm just going to copy that and I'm going to paste it for our z value. Now once we've done that, in our sum variable, we can use the assignment operator. Then we can add y with z. This is known as concatenation. This works the exact same way as we've done with our numbers over here, but instead we're adding variables this time. So what we can do now is in our brackets over here, we can just write the sum value. We can save this, and what you notice is that we get 5 Deek over here. Now what happens in JavaScript is that anything between quotation marks is considered a string and a number is treated as a number. But as soon as you add a number with a string, no matter what the order, the result will be a string, as you can see on the console on the right over here. I do believe, however, that in some other programming languages, this will result in some type of error without first converting the number to a string, then adding it together. With Booleans, you only get 2 values. So a result variable can only have 2 values of either true or false, nothing else. Booleans are majorly used in conditional testing. Once we get to those topics, you'll see this more in action. As for our undefined data type over here, the name speaks for itself. Nothing is assigned to a variable right now, meaning that the variable is undefined and has no value. It'll stay this way till you assign a value to it yourself. And our last data type, known as null, is similar to undefined with the difference that it is actually a set value. So in here, we can actually set this to null. This just basically means that we aren't storing anything yet. We just have an empty variable, but it doesn't really mean anything right now. So undefined means that a value has not been assigned, and null means that there is an empty or blank value there. If you're able to understand and grasp these concepts now, it should make it a lot easier to use them in your own code. But I think that's about it when it comes to a basic introduction to JavaScript data types. I hope you guys were able to find this video to be somewhat informative and helpful, and if you have any questions or concerns, please leave them down below and I'll answer them as best as I can. With that, I'll see you guys in the next one.